You're listening to The Climb Up, a podcast that dives into the real stories behind the rise of corporate leaders, seasoned professionals, and high impact individuals from across industries. This isn't about overnight success or motivational fluff. It's about the tough calls, the quiet pivots, and the mindset shifts that define careers built to last. In every episode, we sit down with those who've earned their stripes to uncover the lessons, losses, and leaps that shaped their journey. Whether you're climbing the ladder, switching lanes, or just getting started, this is where experience meets ambition. Welcome to The Climb. This podcast is brought to you by Blossoms PPC, your trusted partner for promotional apparel and uniforms. Since 1998, we've been manufacturing high quality t shirts, caps, and bags in bulk with competitive pricing and timely delivery. Visit www.blossomsppc.com for more details. Welcome to the Climb Up podcast. And today we're joined by Dr. Debashish Sengupta, an internationally recognized academic, author, and thought leader whose work bridges the worlds of education, business, and human behavior. Dr. Debashish is a senior lecturer and course leader at the University of Portsmouth and the author of acclaimed books like The Life of Y and The Life of Z, which explore the evolving mindset of millennials and Gen Z in the workplace and beyond. His research has earned global recognition, including features in Stanford's library, awards in the Middle East, and best-selling status on Amazon. Beyond the titles and accolades, Dr. Debashish brings decades of perspective on leadership, growth, and the power of staying relevant in a rapidly shifting world. I'd like to start this podcast off by thanking you so much for accepting the invite.
It's my pleasure, Adnan. Thank you for having me on your podcast and thank you for such a kind introduction. Just a small addition to what you introduced. I work with the University of Portsmouth, of course, but in the London campus. So, just to be clear about the facts.
Yes, sir. And I think we can start off the podcast by just asking you, I've had this question it's been on my mind ever since you agreed to come on the podcast. I just want to know what's a belief that you held at the start of your career that you now see is completely wrong, and what's something that has changed it?
Well, I think, one such belief, I think, if, if you ask me, is that um, at the beginning of my career, in fact, when I was still in university, somehow I kind of started to believe that money was the most important thing in life, and I need to really be, focused on making a lot of money. But as I progressed, I realized money is definitely important. There is no two words about it, right? So all these words of philosophy only works when you have money, in your bank. So of course, money is important. There's no two words about it. But money cannot be the driver. And I think that belief changed, over the period of time. And I realized that money is not really a good driver. Money is not something which keeps me awake. Money is not something which pushes me ahead. Internally, intrinsically, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, and if you're not passionate about what you're doing, it will feel like a drag, no matter how much money you make. But it will always feel like a drag. It will always feel, you will always feel exhausted, tired, and bored. So I think that belief changed, to in a way, kind of modified in a way that, I need to follow my passion. I need to follow what I'm really passionate about. And in the process, of course, I need to make money, but that's something which I can't really run after. Neither I can determine how much money I make in my life. So yeah, I think this is one belief which has changed.
That's very fascinating. So I wanted to know, how did you start? Did you always know that you're going to join the world of academia?
For me, most of the things have happened to me rather than, it has been more an emergent strategy rather than a deliberate strategy, if you may say. In So it has emerged, in that way. In fact, my first job was in the field of sales. I started my career with sales, and yeah, I did sales for some time, and I kind of enjoyed that as well. But also within me, I realized that there was something like I remember, I will not name the company. There was a company where I got my first job in sales, and it was a multinational company. And when I got that job way back 90s, when in mid 90s, getting a job in an MNC was a big deal. Like it's not like today that you have every neighborhood you have MNCs. I mean, it's still a big deal, but I mean, at that time it was like a huge thing. So I remember getting the job, and we had a training program which lasted for over a month. And at the end of the training program, I won an award because I I was the topper of the training program. And the VP of that company is very senior VP. He came and gave me an award, and but he also said certain things which I completely didn't understand. But as I went into the field, I understood. I liked the job. I saw that others were also doing well. I was also doing well, but I was not. You know, I was not. I was my interest was lying somewhere else, and I was not understanding. Initially it was very difficult to understand the conflict that you have in mind. You're doing well in what you're doing, but you feel that a little conflicted inside. And but over a period of time, I realized that it is the academia, or not really academia, but it is the business of developing, contributing to the development of people that I really enjoy. And that's why I think it's not only, of course, my full-time job is, I'm a professor, so I teach, but in higher education now for almost 25 years. But I've also worked a lot with companies trying to develop, their workforce, their leaders. So that is where my interest, in terms of writing was my interest. I wanted to write. I wanted to research. So I think it gradually occurred to me, and once it occurred to me, I made that switch. At that time, it was a very difficult switch. It was not an easy transition for me. In fact, a lot of people, I think, criticized me also for making that move, made fun of me also. I had to face a lot of ridicule. Most of that happened on my back, not in front of me, but I knew, I could get a feel of it, that, I mean, I can't blame them at that time. Getting a job in an MNC and then leaving it and trying to move into jobs which pay you much lesser, kind of was obviously looked at by many that it was not the most sensible decision. But yeah, it happened like that. But I kind of believed in it, and that I believed that, I wanted to go ahead with it. There were temptations in between, and of course, and later maybe there was opportunity. I'll tell you that. But I think pretty much I stuck to it, and I am very happy with what I do now.
Do you think so? You mentioned that again, you worked in an MNC in the sales role. Do you think your experience there, because sales is again the art of persuasion and mainly understanding what the consumer wants. It also helps you develop the best persuasion and communication skills. Do you think your experience in sales has given you a unique advantage in your role as not just an author but also as a professor?
Most definitely. I think not only that, but I think in the last 25 years that I've been in higher education, I've continued to work very closely with industry. Have done work for companies in India, in Dubai, in UK, in US, and that has kind of helped me a lot. Because you see, if you don't go to the field of action, I teach business, and my area of work is trying to understand the behavior of people, right? So that is not possible till you are in the field. You the more you are there, the more you have a realistic perspective of what's happening, what are the daily life challenges of people who are on the field in the real world. And that kind of keeps you very relevant and grounded. It also keeps you very realistic. So I think it has helped me in my teaching, because I've been able to kind of bring those perspectives, not only bring those perspectives, but also engage the industry in various forms, whether they coming as industry educators or getting kind of live projects for my students in many ways. But it also has kind of helped me in my research, in my writing, because I've been able to get the real perspectives, the real narratives of people, the real stories of people who work there, and what are their lives, what like other struggles, what are their attitudes, mindsets, behaviors. That kind of perspective would have been missing if I was not connected to that world. So I think my initial beginning from the world of sales, and then continuing to work with industry and entrepreneurs like yourself as well has kind of helped me learn a lot of things, shaped my understanding and also my practices.
What is something you like? Again, you mentioned that it's played a big part in your success in this industry because you have that practical experience. What is something that you think the not just education with regard to business, but like the higher education industry in general over like all countries should really focus on in recruiting faculty members? What are some qualities you think they should have aside from just like practical real world experience?
I think ability to impart skills, I think very important because I think in the world that we live and in the world that in the future that we walk into, in the next 5, 6 years, AI is going to change the world in a drastic manner. It's already changing, and it's a no-brainer that there are a lot of jobs which will probably will not exist anymore. A lot of skills which will probably become obsolete, and new skills will be required. So you continuously have to upgrade skills, remain relevant. I think the most important factor for me is if I am looking at recruiting a faculty, I'll look at, okay, are they able to focus on the real learning? Real authentic learning. And authentic means that whether they can help their learners to learn how to navigate the real world. And if it's not, then it's not useful, in my opinion. No matter how many degrees students get, they are not going to remain relevant. So ability to impart authentic learning and ability to impart skills and ability to guide them how to navigate the real world in which they are going to step into, that's the most important factor for me.
And what's something you think students should really focus on when they join a course to learn?
I think, as I said again, the answer is almost similar because they should look at how that course will prepare them for the real world. How will it help them to actually learn? It's no more about gathering knowledge. You don't need to go to an university or to people like me to gather knowledge. You have chat gpt or AI, other tools, which can give you probably far more knowledge. Earlier it was Google, but now it's AI. I mean, you go and just type it in AI and you see how many responses you get whatever you want. I mean, so you don't really need to come to an university to gather knowledge, or to acquire knowledge. You need to go to a university because you want to learn. And there is a difference between becoming knowledgeable and learning. Learning is different. Learning is not only knowing, but knowing what to do with what you know and how to kind of keep developing that, keep evolving that as things change. Uh, and those skills, if an university can give you, you should definitely go and choose that university. But if that university is more, and if maybe I will annoy a lot of people when I say this, but they still follow that traditional kind of approach which used to be. I'm sorry, that university will probably give you only a paper degree. It's not going to really prepare you for the real world. So yeah, it's no use. It's absolutely no use.
Speaking of traditional approaches, you've had experience teaching across universities in India, the Middle East, and now in London. What's something you've noticed while teaching in universities in the Middle East and and university and a university in London that you think is lacking in universities in India?
Okay, you are going to put me in trouble, definitely with this question. Okay. So I think there is, there are some very good institutions in India as well. There are no two words about it. There are very good institutions in the Middle East, and there are good institutions in this part of the world also. So I don't think we can always like generalize stereotypes saying that no, all universities in this part of the world are not good, or this all universities in this part of the world are doing a great job. But I think at least the university that I currently work with, and I can say for that is that the approach is the only thing that I see different is the belief from the top to that we are here to be facilitators of learning. We are here to help students learn the real world stuff, real world skills, and prepare them for the world that they're going to step tomorrow. And that kind of is like, so what I'm trying to say is that I've been trying to do things as my individual effort from the very beginning of my career. But here it's more systemic in nature. And the level of academic freedom is huge. So you have a lot of room to even radically experiment certain things, radically experiment certain modules, radically change certain things. For instance, I recently taught research methods, and research methods is one of the most traditional, dry kind of modules. It's not enjoyed by mostly by students because it's too content heavy, and that's something which so we have always, you know, shrugged away this content aspect. This worries me because content is, it's almost like it's available everywhere. You're not coming here for content. We are not content developers, really. Right. So we kind of, I kind of radically redesigned it, which everybody supported, and so we don't do lectures here, for instance. That might be one radical approach. We do workshops, so it's no, there are students don't come to a lecture where probably I talk, just lecture them for 1 hour, 2 hours. No, we do a workshops. So that is one different thing. In this particular module, for instance, we got a local council involved, and the local council actually gave a very practical kind of project to our students, which they are anyways working on, which means basically the decarbonization of the commercial assets. And I was that students worked on it. So there was a lot of research involved. They had to we gather a lot of data from the book. They also had to collect a lot of data from the market. You know, they did a fantastic job. I can't tell you how good they have done. There's something very tangible contribution, something very real contribution. There is a lot of appreciation from the council about what students have done. And when I looked at student feedback, they're so happy that research was taught to them in this manner, rather than telling them about various research methods and stuff like that over a PowerPoint. So I think, yeah, so ability to kind of do that thing radically and getting that support from the academic leadership means it's a big thing. Means it's a lot.
That's very fascinating. What is like you mentioned that again. So at your university, you stay away from lectures and your focus is more on workshops.
Yeah.
Two questions. What is like what kind of workshops do you actually conduct to ensure that students are not just like listening but actually understand? And the second question is, what has been your favorite workshop so far?
Okay, so workshops are typically run over a like generally we have 4 hour workshops, and these workshops run, of course, there are breaks in between, but the workshop is designed with the aspect of active blended learning. So there is the whole aspect is focused on active blended learning. So workshop is a series of activities which the students do or participate into, and those activities are, connected to the learning outcomes. What particular learning outcomes are there, and these activities are also connected to the kind of assessments that they will do. So another radical thing in our university is we have almost completely done away with written exams. So there are no written exams, right? So the students don't have to actually come and sit and write a 2 hour, 3 hour exam. So because assessment is not about test of memorized knowledge. We are not trying to see how much you can remember, really, and then give you grades based on, okay, you can remember the most, so that let's give you the best grade. We are trying to see assessment is of the learning. So how much have you actually learned? And another very fascinating thing, which I think I discovered only after coming here, is assessment for learning, which means assessment is not only of the learning, the assessment design is in such a way that it itself helps you to learn. So in other words, we call this a constructive alignment. So there is a learning outcome, we have the workshop activities, and we have what we call as the assessment. So everything is connected. It's not a disconnected, a set of activities. So that kind of alignment, that constructive alignment, is in terms of focusing on that workshops as a series of activities. So there are series of activities that students would do to learn what they need to learn in that particular workshop. But then once that workshop is over, that workshop's learning activities continue into new learning activities in the next workshop. And together, all these workshops help you to learn what you should have learned in that particular module. But then these are very closely tied with the assessments. Now, I'll give you an example to help you understand. In the same module that I completed, now this is the most recent module that I have finished teaching. Majority of the workshop kind of focused on what students were doing in this council project, right? So we had a project from the local council, and this basically required them to do a lot of things. But just to give you an example, this as project, you know, was connected to the workshop act. So various activities prepared them for this particular project, helped them to complete this project. But this project also became their, kind of a formative assessment. So they have to ultimately they will be graded majorly on the kind of project report that they produce and the kind of and the presentation that they gave was in front of the borough members, so in the front of the council members, so in front of the actual people. You are going to talk about them. So but then it required them to also kind of do a lot of data collection and do a lot of data analysis. So what we did, one of the workshops that I ran was a simulation of how they would conduct interview. So it was basically on simulation on research interviewing. So what does simulation mean? You create a real life situation. So we gave them real interview questions. We brought real industry people whom they will interview, right? So they got the real interview questions. They got real industry people who came as educators, as volunteers, right? And these were people working for really big companies here in London. I can't name the companies for the want of confidentiality, but yeah, they came and they interviewed them. And after each interview, we do a kind of a washout, where we kind of look at the feed. I give them feedback. They help understand what they have done well, what they have not done well, what could have been done better. And then we bring another industry volunteer. They interview that. So it's like a simulation which runs. But then this also becomes kind of one of their kind of formative assessments, right? So they also becomes a formative assessment. So this is how, just to give you, I hope I was able to explain. It might look a little bit complex from the outside, but once you are in it, the focus is on what students do rather than what the teacher does. Because in traditional teaching, the focus is on what teacher does. So yeah, teacher is the hero. You're like you are there on the stage, center stage. You are there on the focus. No, focus here is where the student does, and we are on the sidelines trying to facilitate this learning process through this activity.
That's amazing. No, that's really fascinating because whenever someone, like, at least for me, whenever I've thought of, like, a business course, I've never found it very practical because I always, like, I myself, and I'm sure a lot of people see business as something that you just do and learn along the way. But what you're teaching actually, it's like the simulations and the workshops can give a person like a major advantage because it's not memorizing, it's not learning for the sake of it. It's actually
And the life
understanding.
briefs, so
Yeah.
there are live briefs, which means the students work on real projects of the real world, and they make a tangible kind of contribution. And this contribution is not just in terms of tokenism; it's a real contribution where if they have like a project like this, they actually make the final project presentation in front of the company or the borough or the council who has actually awarded them that project. So and they are very stringent in terms of evaluating them. And that's what I said. Bringing the real world in this way helps them. Okay, this is where I'm going to step in, and this is how my work will be evaluated. So yeah, it makes a lot of difference to get those kind of feedback.
I think that started in India now. So in India, you have two places, Masters Union and Mesa. Masters Union, have you heard of them? Yeah, I think that's very fascinating. I think it's again the trends from there are coming here now.
I think the world is changing fast. I think about 7 8 months back, I wrote an article about this. Which was published in one of the leading magazines in India, and that was on that. How the world needs to change. At this moment, also, I'm working on something and how the AI is going to change and how does the higher education need to respond to this. So I think we need to keep evolving. We need to keep changing. We need to understand where we are and where we are headed for. And I think two most significant questions for me in my life always has been why and so what. Why are we doing what we are doing? not only what we are doing or how we are doing. Why are we doing what we are doing? So it's very important. That's one of the most powerful words. Why? If you don't ask why, or why am I doing whatever I'm doing for my students, why, whatever, why I'm writing what I'm writing, so that is one. But then once that question is answered, then the so what? So what? Okay. If I do this, so what? What will be the benefit? How will it contribute? How will it contribute to the real world? How will it contribute to solving a real world problem? If can't get answers to these two questions, then I think there is no use of doing anything, whether it is a teaching or whether it is research or whether it's writing. I don't find use of that.
I think building on the question that you mentioned, the why and the what, the question that I think all of our audience members would like to know is that why do you do what you do? Like, why have you like you're not just a professor, you're also an author. How are you able like why do you do that? And also how are you able to manage doing so much?
I love doing it. I'm passionate about it. That's the answer to it. That's why I do it, because I really, really, really love what I do. I love teaching. I love research. I love writing. Why I do, that's the so what part. So, it should, as I said, whatever I do should make a real contribution. So if I'm teaching, then it should really, even if in a small way, it should contribute to a student becoming a little bit better prepared for the real world that they're going to step into. If I'm writing, then it should actually help people understand something which is like a puzzle. It should help the world of practice. It should help businesses. It should help organizations. It should help societies. It should help individuals. So I remember that long, quite a number of years back, I was doing, I think that's how I started working on, because my area of writing kind of intersects younger generations, understanding their behavior, attitudes, mindsets. And why? Because I'm trying to explore their engagement in various contexts. And I remember there was a boutique birthing hospital where I was still in India at that time, and they had invited me, and I had given a kind of did a workshop for them. And they're all like medical staff, right? So but it was more intended towards what they can do with the younger generation, how they can engage the younger generation at work. But after my workshop was over, there was a senior matron. Now, matron is like a head nurse, senior matron, who,
Yeah.
when I was waiting for my car, from the valet. So she was, uh, uh, on the way out, and she stopped by and said that, thank you for your session. I think I'm going back home with a much better understanding of my teenage son. And that these are the kind of things which kind of touches you, because you know that it kind of makes a little bit of difference into relationships that people have in their lives. So yeah, I think that's what keeps me going. That's why what I do, I really enjoy it. And I think in some way, if I'm able to make some real contribution.
I have two questions again. The first question is you mentioned passion plays a big part in what you do. How
Yeah,
much of an importance do you think passion should play in a person determining what career path they're going to go down?
I think it should be number one, because I think it's like, if you don't enjoy, it's if you really don't like what you do, when you choose a career, pretty much you are kind of determining what course of life, what course of direction that you will take, is that you are going to do for the rest of your life, or at least for the major part of your life, because this is not a era of one career, it's an area of multiple careers. But definitely you're choosing something that you would do for a long time. And if you're not going to enjoy it, what's the what's you know what's the point? If you don't enjoy, I mean, I'm sure you do this podcast. I mean, this is not your main career. This is. I know you are a young entrepreneur, right? But I'm sure anything that you do, if you don't enjoy it, why? What's the point in doing it? And and every day will feel like uh, work. But when you enjoy something, it doesn't feel like work. I mean, of course, you will get fit, you will get tired, you will have fatigue, but that's only physical fatigue. You'll never have the mental fatigue. So I think passion should be number one, in terms of what you want to do. Yeah, I know that you should also probably look at, people say, no, no, you should look at what jobs will be more relevant in the future, right? So if you now search They will tell you all technology jobs, all technology jobs which involve some kind of artificial intelligence, machine learning, stuff like that. So if you go and search anywhere, what jobs will be, you know, have the highest demand, in the next 5 years, they will give you. But my interest lies in humanities. So should I now forget humanities, and should I now, run behind artificial, running learning technology? And you see, that is where I think it goes wrong. Where I should still pursue my interest in humanities, and it is a myth to think that AI is only for technology people. AI is for everybody. Everybody needs to learn a little bit of AI, and so humanities can play a big role in the future in how are trained. AI systems are trained, you know, because at this moment, one of the things that AI systems lack is aspects like empathy. They don't have too much of empathy, or they can't really emotionally be so sensible as much as they are otherwise sensible. So humanities might play a big role. You're passionate about psychology. You should go and pursue psychology, because probably in the future people will need a lot of help in terms of their mental health. There's nothing to be negative about. Mental health is if is something which probably all of us need some other kind of help, but some need a little bit of more professional help. So I'm sure. So, but what I'm trying to say is you should acquire skills, but follow a career which you are really passionate about. And if you are passionate about it, and if you're good at that, if you're really good about it, you will always be relevant.
That is amazing advice. And coming to the next question, so you mentioned again, AI is not just for tech people, AI is for everybody. And ever since OpenAI released ChatGPT back in 2023, the
Yeah.
whole world has changed. In the what I mean, and again, you mentioned earlier that you are again that you are exploring the impacts that AI is going to have, not just on the
Yeah.
world, but like with a specific focus to business. Could you teach us something about that? Like, how is the business world going to shift in the next decade because of the introduction of AI?
You see, the one of the very interesting quotes that I've heard is the CEO of this one big AI company, NVIDIA. Forgetting his name, I think it's Jensen or something.
Yeah,
Said
Jensen
that
Huang, I think.
Jensen Huang. Yeah. So Jensen Huang, he said that AI will not replace you, but somebody who knows AI will replace you. And that's a very interesting quote. AI is not going to replace you. Most of us think that AI will replace us. AI will take our jobs. Yeah, maybe certain mundane, everyday kind of jobs, repetitive jobs will go to machines. Will probably that happened before as well, right? So, but AI is not really, going to take away job. Who will take away your job is somebody who has, been an early adopter of AI, right? So it will be a human, not the AI. Human will take your job, and that so AI, if you see, China has already made AI compulsory as a part of the school education. So
Wow.
yeah, and I think the US is adopting something similar very soon. It should happen in most of the countries. A lot of people, technology people, are saying don't teach coding to your kids. Coding will be completely taken over by AI in the next 4 5 years. Instead, help them learn AI. And you see, AI has application in everything. Because see, if you look at fundamentally, I think there are three kinds of AI at this moment. Again, at this moment is very important. One is the generative AI, right, which we mostly use. So all the chat GPT and everything that you use is generative AI because it helps you kind of generate a lot of stuff. But then there is predictive AI, which helps you predict, around things. And then there is conversational AI, which is where things get automated, like automated voice, automated bots, stuff like conversational AI. So they can talk to you. Like recently, there has, I think, one of the train stations, I don't know which part of the world, they have installed a AI person AI who looks like a human being, but it's not a human being. It's a AI generated who actually is giving you the tickets, selling the tickets at the station. So, so generative AI is mostly what we use at this moment, right? It can be used in various myriad of different ways in which it can become absolutely beneficial. Like for instance, supposedly. a student is doing a student of literature is doing a critical analysis. I'm giving you a non-business example because what mostly people give you either business examples or give you technology examples. I'm giving you a non-business example particularly because generally this societal perception about humanities is that humanity is like below this people who take the STEM, and I have a problem with that. We need all of it. We need STEM, but we need humanities. We need people who are good in literature, good in language, good in history, good in civics, uh, you know, uh, and people who are good psychologists. We need all kind of people who are good in music, who are good in dance. We need all kind of people. We artists, creative people. We need all of them, right? So there is nothing like hierarchy for. So I'm giving you a kind of a example from somebody say is studying English literature and they have written an analytical piece. So it's a critical analytical piece of say a poetry by William Wordsworth, right? So you have written a critical analytical piece. Now the wrong way of using generative AI is that you ask ChatGPT, you put the poem, and then you ask ChatGPT, can you write an analytical piece for me? That is the wrong way of using AI. What is the right way of using AI? You write that analytical piece, and then you probably give it to the AI and say that how is this? What are the aspects that I've analyzed really well? What could I have analyzed better? What other readings I could have brought in so that my analysis could have been stronger? So let the AI critique you, or sometimes what AI tells you, critique it. So it's one way of making an excellent use of generative AI, right? So I think AI is for everybody, and we need to learn. I am learning AI in small bits in different ways. I think I'm using AI now in design of my learning design in many ways, very constructively. It helps me a lot. So it can be used by anybody and everybody, and we all need to learn it.
Have you tried using AI clones?
No, I have not tried AI
Because
clones.
I saw your Instagram today and you've launched a new series.
Yeah,
So I was just going to ask you again if like since you're teaching AI, have you considered so you mentioned again that at the station they were using an AI that can almost like talk and speak to you.
yeah.
So are you planning on using AI to, create your content?
No, I would probably again. I'll create my own content because see, I don't want my content to be again. What I launched today is basically a new generational series, so it's called XYZ with Depth, and this is basically the season one generational paradoxes. So that's what. Now these paradoxes that I've identified in the lives of younger generations, Gen Zs and millennials, this is a part of my original finding. So it's something which I found by talking to really countless Gen Zs and millennials. So how, that's something which is on original content. If it's the original content, how can I expect AI to generate that? So AI would probably generate a very good content, but it still would not be the content that I want. So I would not use AI to generate it, but I might use AI to help me probably refine it, or see if I can how I can probably make it more interesting when I kind of share it with my audience, right? So it can help me to make it refined in the way, not in terms of refining it in terms of how can I make it more engaging, how can I present it so that it becomes more interesting, more engaging. Yeah. So I will use it for that. As I said, using AI thinking that it is a substitute of you, I think is a mistake. I think it should augment you. It should synergize what you do rather than thinking that it can replace me. But the more you start doing that, more it will actually replace you. This fear of getting replaced will happen because of laziness. So if I'm lazy and I think that AI can do all the work for me, fine, then you are not required, right? And not only because of that, but because of that, that AI this should not be used in that way. I think AI is not designed to use in that way. Also, AI is designed to augment what you do, make it even better, synergize your efforts rather than uh, you know becoming kind of lazily dependent on AI, if I may say that.
I think as a member of Gen Z, I think that's something that's very hard for me and my generation to understand, because when AI can just replace you and do the things that you don't want to. I think everybody in my generation has used AI for at least one assignment, if not more than one. And coming to the topic of Gen Z, so you have authored a book about you Z. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember speaking to you once before you
You were
published it.
my first interview, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I think you were my first interview.
Yeah.
One of when I started writing, I finished the Life of White project. My
Okay.
millennial project was over, and I was starting my Z project. And I remember interviewing you. You were even younger. I mean, you were still very
Yeah, I
young,
was
but
very young back then.
you were literally a child at that time when I interviewed you. So, of course, with the consent of your parents, just for the information of public, that I followed all the ethical protocols when interviewing you. But yes, I think you were one of my first interviews. So yeah, it really was the beginning of when I interacted with a lot of Gen Zs, not only with them, but a lot of people who manage Gen Zs, the parents, the teachers, the child psychologists. And I got really rich perspectives, and I think I've always followed the narrative method of inquiry. And that kind of helped me understand a lot about how and why the attitudes, mindsets, behavior of this generation is so different from the previous generation. Why it is, and why most people find it difficult to understand that. And because of because of that gap in understanding, there is a sense of discomfort between the older generation and younger generation. And that what basically erodes engagement, or that basically kind of kills engagement. So I think I've read countless articles where, managers are saying that Gen Z workers are very difficult to work with. I recently read an article which says that Gen Zs are expert in task masking. So they appear very busy with their laptops, with their AirPods, everything, and they will just go by and they have AirPods in their ear, ear or headphones or something. You can't even, ask them what they are doing. They appear to be busy, but they're actually, just pretending to work. So there are so many. Every other day, I read one article which talks about something like that, and all of that tells me that there is this gap. You know, Fundamentally, neither Gen Z is bad, neither the older generations are bad. Nobody is really bad. There is just this void, this gap. This gap needs to be bridged, and my effort has been to bridge this gap, whether through my research, whether through my books, whether through my writing, whether through my talk, whether through my engagement with the companies or societies, is to bridge this gap. Once you bridge this gap, you know, and you have each one has a better understanding of the other, engagement will automatically follow.
What was your why to bridge the gap between the older generation and millennials and the older generation and Gen Z?
Okay, so you see, Gen Zs are even more different. That's what I will say. See, millennials and Gen Zs, why we are talking about this. See, we have always, if you take me to the generational thing, we have always talked about generational gap, isn't it? That this has been there forever, right? Always, kids have found that their parents don't understand them. They always, and especially when they got to their teen years, they always complain, right? And parents always said that we know better than we were like you, so we know what it is to be like, right? So parents have always said that from time immemorial, and kids have always behaved like that from time immemorial. Then why, you know, what is so different when it comes to millennials, Gen Zs, especially Gen Zs? Why are we talking about this? Why we need to read books about this? Why we need to, understand this? Because from millennials, and starting, and now, of course, for every generation we already have beta now starting this year, right? So alpha is already older now, because after Z came alpha, and then now from 1st January 2025 the first beta was born. So we have the beta generation. Why they are the, it's important to talk with it, because these generation have lived a transformational era. Transformational era means there are rapid changes which have happened in their environment, whether it is the overall environment or whether it's the immediate environment, which has kind of created a set of transformed realities, right? So, and those transformed realities have had a transformational impact on this generation. So their attitudes, their mindsets, their behaviors have been shaped by that. For instance, this aspect of that anything can go wrong at any point of time. This has happened in the world today, right? So you know that it could be your physical safety, your is not guaranteed, no fault of yours. Suddenly something might happen, and you might something might happen to you, or it might be because of like you are doing very well in your job, but something happens in some part of the world and you lose your job, right? So not that because you are doing poorly, but just something happens. So this thing has created this whole aspect of instant gratification. Also the advent of social media, that it can give you at your everything you can get at the tap of your finger. So it is because of what is happening in the environment, right? So if I want to live today and now, if I want to have money and then enjoy money, I don't want to save too much. I don't want to really invest too much because I don't know whether I will be there to enjoy that money. If you ask, I'm sure, people of your age mostly say, okay, I'm more focused on enjoying the present, rather than saving for the future, right? Why it happened? Because it happened because of what has happened in the world, right? In the world around. So what I'm trying to say is that these generations in particular have lived a transformational time, and that has changed, and that has caused a big shift. And that shift is not easy to understand. And that's why probably people can find it helpful if they read my book or my articles or something, because it helps them to kind of fathom the shift, understand the shift.
What are three things you think the older generations at like with this is with focus to a workplace? What are three things that the older generation should understand about their Gen Z workforce?
Flexibility, number one. First is Gen Z really likes flexibility. Flexible in terms of where they work, when they work, how they work, and also in terms of if how much choice they have in what they do. So they want that flexibility, right? So wherever you take away that flexibility from them, they feel claustrophobic. Most of them, they don't like it. So if when you force them to come to work every day, you have to come to office every day, you have to log in, log out. That's something which, you give them flexibility, they will flourish, they will do better, right? So you can't expect them that they will sit from 9 to 5 like your previous generation, like you used to sit, right? They might not do it in that way. Yet they might probably want to log in at maybe 8 in the night or 9 in the night or 10 in the night and finish a little bit of work which they could not do during the daytime. So flexibility is number one. That is number one. Second is, this is a extremely informed generation, right? So they have a high level of information, and they also are very tech kind of proficient. So I think you can really use leverage on this kind of capacity of the younger generation, right? So I think leaders can try. We have always heard about mentoring, but a lot of reverse mentoring can happen. You can let a younger person in your company reverse mentor you on aspect of AI or digital technology or digital transformation that the company can do, or how we can probably change the way we interact with our customers or we do deal with customers. So yes, that's number two. And number three is, that I think in terms of understanding their life realities, that certain things have. That is what, if you watch my this whole series Paradoxes, you will understand is that the whole effort is to make people understand the life realities, and these life realities are very different. They don't have the similar support system that you used to have. They don't have the similar kind of probably health that they used to have. There's a far more stress, far more impact on mental health, far more kind of volatility in the whole environment. So I think if you understand that, and then try to engage them and manage them, it is far better.
And I think that's something that I could totally relate to. Everything you mentioned, when flexibility, autonomy, again, a lot of like information because of I think we were born with phones. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that's something I'm definitely going to show to my parents so that they can understand me better.
Yeah, I think, I always say, we kind of had to learn and adopt technology because we are like my generation. I'm from X generation, Generation X. We are like a bridge between you know transistors and iPads. Like so we kind of seen, but your generation was born into the cradle of technology. You took to the technology as fish takes to water, right? So it's a completely different kind of scenario when it comes, and the younger people get, the more they are better at that.
Absolutely. And what is something you think Gen Z could understand about the older generation? The Gen Z workforce could understand about their senior management? Like maybe two things.
Yeah, I think one is that they mean good. Their techniques may not be right at times, and it might appear to be very harsh or kind of that shows lack of understanding. Yes, it might happen at times, but they mean good. They are not there to harm you. I think that is one thing that you need to understand. Second, there is also a value of, as much as there is a value of youth, energy, and enthusiasm, but there is also value of experience. Now, that experience needs to be interpreted in the right way. That experience doesn't mean that, okay, I have seen this. It's not should not be like war stories, my war stories from my trenches. No, it's not. What happened during your time may not be relevant today, but there, the experience definitely can be interpreted in ways that can help you understand certain things. Like, for instance, you see, if you look at, even we can understand from a company like Kodak, which was once a leader in photographic films, and then went, completely was taken over when the digital era came. But to know that the first digital camera was actually discovered by one of the employees of Kodak. Do you know that? It was one of
Well,
the employees of Kodak who actually discovered the first digital camera. But then Kodak decided to hide this because they thought that it will impact the sales of their photographic films. And then you see what happened. Kodak got replaced, right? So experience can be interpreted in this way that, if you don't move with the times, if you don't change, then you can get replaced, right? So, yeah, these two things, I think one, they mean good. I mean, although their techniques or words may not be always the right ones. Second is, you can always get something from the experience that they have. You can always learn something.
do you think that again you mentioned that like if you look at like the world today and like the business world specifically, like it's very dynamic. There's a lot of change. Like what's running today might not run tomorrow. Do you think Gen Z's need for flexibility and like our ability to adapt actually puts us in like a unique advantage when it comes to the business world?
Not only business world, I think everywhere, non-business world as well. I think, of course, yes. I think it is like, see, if the whole aspect of place being replaced with space, whether it is the time, or whether, or whether it is the concept of place and time has changed in many ways. The ability to adapt, the desire for flexibility is not bad. It is actually good. It should be seen in a positive way, and I think that can be utilized in many ways. There are people now who don't want to do, from your generation, they want to have multiple careers and multiple jobs all at the same time. So there is nothing wrong with it. We can have what we it started, now it is happening, which is called as crowdsourcing of employees. We can do crowdsourcing, which we do in marketing. We can do it in human resource as well. We don't need to always have a captive workforce. You can crowdsource people, and especially from your generation, and can have them work on specific projects, and if they want to leave after that, let them go. It's okay. You can still get value from them, right?
That's very fascinating. And coming to the final segment of this podcast, can you tell us a bit about your experience and your journey as an author?
It has been very, I think I have always felt that life is not a destination for me, it's a journey, and I am very fortunate to have the kind of experiences that I have had, the kind of opportunities that I have had till now. And those experiences, the value lies in those experiences that I've been able to experience and able to have been in that space, been in that kind of frame of mental frame, or have that opportunity to write whatever I've been able to write, and to have that accepted by people and to be appreciated for that, to be recognized for that. Although I didn't do it necessarily for the recognition part, I did it because as I told you, that why I did it. But I think it has been fascinating, in terms of being able to do a myriad of different kind of things and write about them, whether it is in form of my books or whether the other kind of publications that I have had, research publications that I have had, is fascinating. One such example is, which is not a book, is like, where I was, and the COVID was receding. I was fascinated by one of the story of one of my students who had worked as a volunteer. I was in Bahrain at that time, and she worked as a female volunteer for the PCR tests and the vaccination drives. And I was really intrigued because she had a young child, she had old parents at home, as she told us. What really motivated her to actually take up that volunteering? Because it was a time when we were all trying to, scurry for our homes. That was the most safest place. And what would make her to go and put herself in that situation, which would definitely kind of increase the probability of her getting an infection, and that could probably pass on to her child. And when I heard about her story, it was so incredible, in terms of that, how she got her support from her husband, and how she stayed away from her old parents for 9 months, because of this volunteering, why she did what she did. And I worked on that, and it was all the young, again, it was all the younger generation, but all the younger, women who actually volunteered, and based on that, my publication, it became such a, if I may say, popular piece, when I was in Bahrain. It was covered by the print media, it was covered by the electronic media, and it also won me the research award in the whole country for that year. But beyond the recognition and the award, because it kind of, these were stories of real people, and this is what I enjoy, bringing the stories of the real people, uh, and telling it to the world.
When did you first think of becoming an author? When did you first think of writing your book?
Book, my first, if you ask me when I first started to write, I started to write, when I was a child, like I was right, I started by writing poetry, because my poetry was my first thing which I actually started writing. But I think the first time I felt that it was by accident. I was not writing a book, I was writing something, and then it just kept I just kept writing it, and it became, I showed it to a very senior, one of my first mentors. I showed him, and he said that this you should consider publishing it as a book. That was around 2006, I think, 2005, 2006.
Okay.
And then that came out as one of my first books, which was basically called as "You Can Beat Your Stress." And my argument was, you are the best person to actually beat your stress, not anybody else, and how you can do that. So yeah, that's where I started. That's how all the things started. But I didn't really plan and stick that I will write a book. I was writing something which I was really interested in, and then it actually became a book. So yeah, and that's how it started.
Do you think that's, again, I think you mentioned it in the beginning of the podcast. Do you think that's been like a guiding philosophy of your life where you've stumbled across things like these?
Yeah, I think so. And I think one very important thing, Adnan, is like I have never taken anything for granted. I have worked very hard in my life, and I still continue to work very hard. And I think I have realized the value of hard work, but also smart work. But I have never taken anything for granted, no matter how small the opportunity is. If it has come to me, I have given it the due importance, and start worked hard for it. And sometimes very small things have become, you know something completely different, later on. Because just because I kind of, I've never taken anything, as I said, even relationships for me is like that. I've not taken any relationship for granted. try to, at least from my part, I try to remain truthful to that. So I think that those things have kind of become in that, and I'm very, as I said, I'm fortunate that turned out to be like this, or they have turned out to be the way they have. But yes, it has been more emergent for me. I've never sat down and thought, okay, I will create this, I will create that, and I will, because of this, I will get this much money, I'll get this much recognition. No, I just did it for what I really love doing, and then things turned out to be the way they are.
Can you tell us about your experience working with Mr. Said Kirmani?
Yeah, that was an interesting experience because his autobiography released on 29th December 2024, and I am a co-author on that book. So everybody asked me, how did you end up writing an autobiography? Because this is not my genre, really. As I told you, my books, the Life of Y, the Life of Z, all these are books are on human behavior, especially the behavior of generation. So it was around 2018, I believe, when my Life of Y was getting ready for release, because both these books have been released by Sage earlier, and now they have been re-released by Penguin Random House. So these books have had two launches. So 2018 was the time when my Life of Y was ready to roll out, and that's when I met Mr. Kirmani and I requested him to kind of release my book. He did that, and that's when he kind of broached this topic, and he said that he had been thinking about writing this for a long time and he wanted my help into it. I I mean, the kind of respect that I have for him, I was obviously I couldn't say no to him. I obviously, but I also didn't know what to do because I really don't know how to write an autobiography. But I realized that probably because I do storytelling, I have this narrative way of writing whatever I write, even my books, other books. So that might become handy, and that actually became handy. So yes, so that was it started, and then it took. I didn't think that it will take so much time, but it took time because obviously things take time. Anything like this, any project like this takes time, and in between a lot of changes also happened in my life. I changed places. I moved to Bahrain and then I moved to London. But yeah, it continued and it came out like this. We had a fantastic launch. I mean, we had some really big, iconic cricket stars who came and launched this book, including the great Kapil Dev and people like Rahul Dravid, Lakshman, and Kumble. So yeah, we are also having, if I may use this opportunity to uh, make a kind of an announcement that we are having a launch of this book at the House of Lords very soon. You know, so uh, and that is, I think, the first ever autobiography of any Indian cricketer, which will be released in the House of Lords. Yeah, so yeah, it has been a fantastic journey. Like this has been a completely different kind of experience, a very rewarding experience in that way. Again, I didn't plan this. In fact, I was not even supposed to be. I was just trying to be the pen to the voice of Mr. Kirmani. So, but eventually, on his insistence, he's, you know, this thing I came on board as an author, and then, you know, it just happened in that way. So as I said before, I didn't plan it again this way, but it kind of worked in this way. And it has been really a rewarding experience, a very different kind of experience, but equally rewarding experience as my other books. Yeah.
What's a lesson you think again? So you like since you wrote the book about Mr. Kirmani, what's a lesson you think Gen Z should learn from his life and his story?
I think to be dignified even when you lose, that is one. I think he had talked about his failures in this book as well, not only his success. Everybody knows that he was a part of our 1983 World Cup team, and he played a very critical role in our country winning the first ever Cricket World Cup at Lords. And he was also adjudged as the best wicketkeeper in the world. But he has also talked about his failures and how he, even when he has failed, he has been appreciated because he has demonstrated those qualities, which has sometimes even placed him above the winner. So that is one. I think second, I think his level of resilience, because I think he has faced lots of ups and downs in his life and his career, and he has continued to be resilient about those things, and uh, keep up his performance in whatever field. And uh, and also that, the kind of, today we talk about multiple careers, multiple, I mean, he is a living example of somebody who had, in his generation it was very, very uncommon, but he has had so many different roles that he has played. He has been, of course, iconic sports person, iconic cricketer, iconic wicketkeeper, but he has acted in films, right? So he has been a banker, he's a philanthropist, he's been a commentator, so what Gen Z to do today has multiple career, who started somebody like by somebody like him, and he continues to do. I mean, you see the kind of enthusiasm in him is infectious. If you meet him as a person, the kind of enthusiasm he has, absolutely infectious. Is Has a childlike enthusiasm in him. That's fascinating. It's something very inspiring.
I just like one question that just popped into my head while like throughout this whole podcast is like again you mentioned that you this one like or you just discovered all of this along the way. But as a child, did you like even have like the slightest thought that when you grow up, you're not just going like you're going to be extremely successful, a world-renowned lecturer, an accomplished author, you publish articles, and you're also doing a lot of research. Did you ever like think that you would end up doing so much in your life? Or did you have like
I
simple
don't
dreams as a
think
kid?
the only problem is, the only difference is, I don't think like the way you have just described. So I don't think I've achieved I've anything like, so for me, success has not been, like, I don't know how others perceive me, and if they really are appreciative of what I have done, I'm extremely thankful. I'm not conceited, it makes me happy. But Adnan, I really don't think I've become something. Like, this becoming something has never occurred to me. I've become something. I really, a big guy. I'm world renowned. I'm this. And really, genuinely, I'm telling you, it has never occurred to me. It For me, I every day start from. I always say I start from zero every day, and I have to work. I have to work. I have to work very hard. I have to be very focused. I have to be very committed to be able to do what I'm trying to do. And success for me is not reaching a summit. You know, Success is for me is being happy about what I'm doing. If I am feeling happy, and right now I'm feeling very happy doing this podcast with you, so I feel successful because I'm very happy with what I'm doing at this moment. And maybe because of that, I can make some other people genuinely happy about. Oh, yeah. So it has never occurred to me that that I have reached a particular stage, or I have climbed a particular summit, or I've become something. It has never occurred to me, really. It Genuinely, I'm telling you, you might say that it's being very cliched of trying to just appear humble or something, but genuinely it never occurred to me, or never occurs to me, that in that.
Two things to follow up with that. Is this something that you learned along the way, or were you always like this? I mean, were you always like this as a child? And the second thing to follow up with that is, do you think this is the reason you've been able to accomplish so much? Because you've always started from zero in your words and never just, basked in your success.
I think it's a part of my life. Like, you see, I think, when I started in my career in India. I was, you start with zero experience, and then you move. You do so many things, you learn so many things, and then I moved my place. When probably most people won't. I shifted. I kind of went to Bahrain, and again I started from zero. Because nobody knew me there. I had nothing to follow me there except that I had to do work, and I had to prove myself. And I had to ensure that I do good work. And then 5 years after, when everybody started knowing me, I moved to London, and now again I started with zero. Like, so it has been that my life has been like that. My journey has been like that. So I don't know. Maybe I learned it because of the journey I had, or maybe I was like this. I don't know. I really don't know. But uh, but I think I am. I'm a learner, which I'm trying to learn things. I think the only thing I have learned in my life is to keep learning, and that's the only way to stay relevant. Otherwise, you will be obsolete. People won't need you. So I think that's what I can say about this. I really don't know what else to say this about this.
That's very fascinating. And I think coming towards the ending and the lighter section of the podcast before we conclude, can you tell us a bit about your childhood?
Okay, if you want something lighter side, I don't know what childhood. I think my childhood was very like uneventful. I mean, I don't think it was very eventful or that one. I was like a quiet child. I was a very shy person. I was not public facing at all. Like I was somebody who would hide. I was never on stage. I was I was mostly doing something that I can do from the background. That is, I found it easier to very comforting to write because I didn't have to be in front of 100 people and perform. So I was not like that, when I was growing up a child, and I was very withdrawn. I was not. I was a very a kind of well behaved child, if you may say. I was not like somebody who was creating trouble or something. But yes, as I grew up, I think when I went to university and left my home for the first time, I realized that I needed to change. I needed to become a little bit, needed to believe in myself more. And so it has been, so there's nothing much fun, but I think there have been things which have happened, which have been extremely interesting. Like I tell you one funny incident. When I was working, still I was in India, and I was in the college canteen. I was sitting there and I was missed my breakfast that day. I really missed my best breakfast, but I missed my breakfast and I had a lecture in the morning. I mean, I had a class in the morning itself. So I'd done that and I was really famished. I was really hungry. So I went to the cafeteria, college cafeteria, took a puff or something, and I was eating. And there was those two students came from behind, and they didn't recognize me, and one student, he actually put a hand on my shoulder, and he thought I was another student. He mistook me as student, and he said something like that. So like that. And the moment I turned towards him, and I was shocked. Who would actually address me like this in an university, right? And I turned, and his face was white. He was hit blank. He blacked out. He didn't know what to do, and he was trying to apologize. He was trying to run away, and it was so funny. Like I couldn't stop my laughter. I actually made him sit down, and he was like really trembling. Like he said, sorry, sorry, sir, sorry, sir, sorry, sir. I find this as a compliment that you mistook me for a student. So I actually offered him what I was eating, but he was just waiting when he could get away from me and run away. So yeah, things like that have happened, which kind of have been funny. Yeah, yeah. I don't know, but it has been very interesting until now.
And the last question that I'd like to ask before we conclude the podcast: what are the things you hope to achieve at the end of your career?
I don't see my career ending so too soon now, and so I never thought about it. But I think I would be, if you want, what would be my epitaph or something? Like I would be kind of wanting to be remembered. Even if you don't remember me, it's fine. I mean, I'm not worthy to be remembered too much, for too long. But yes, if my work stays back, and my work kind of continues to benefit people, I will be happy with that. People may forget me, but if they still value my work, whatever I have done, and they value the books that I have written, and it becomes, they value because it gives them something, it helps them in some way, I would be happy with that.
That's a very interesting outlook on it.
Thank you.
And I think that brings us to the conclusion of this podcast. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Sengupta. And I truly have learned a lot about you and this entire journey of yours. And it's been quite inspiring to listen to it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for having me on this podcast. And my best wishes for you.
Thank you.